Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into quite an intense theological discussion. We're looking at the specific nature of moral transgression, focusing on commentary around 1 Corinthians chapter 6.
Yeah, and our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the source material's really precise definitions and, honestly, some remarkably vivid analogies. I mean, comparing relationships to bank robbers, facing down snakes to get at two core ideas. First, how it defines the difference between sex inside and outside commitment, and second, why the source argues this specific sin is, well, uniquely destructive, different from other wrongs.
That's right, and it's probably worth noting right at the start the context here. This teaching, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It actually begins with a very specific prayer, giving thanks for protection during Typhoon Phoenix in Taiwan, and praying for restoration in places like Suao that got hit hard by flooding.
Oh, interesting. So it sets a certain tone? Exactly. It immediately sets this frame that, life is precarious. We need something foundational, something stable, whether that's divine protection or, as the text argues, a kind of moral structure. It grounds the whole discussion, really, in this search for security when things feel chaotic.
That makes sense. And that idea of security, or the lack of it, seems to lead right into the first big analogy the source uses. Okay, let's unpack this core contrast it draws between different kinds of sexual activity. It kicks off with that bank analogy you mentioned. So when it talks about activity outside of a committed relationship, the source is, well, it's pretty blunt. It calls it stimulating enjoyment, sure, but then immediately says it lacks real substance. It feels hollow.
Right. It uses the comparison of robbing a bank.
Exactly, robbing a bank.
And the point is, you get something fast, the thrill, the money, whatever, but it isn't really yours, like
Right.
borrowed pleasure, maybe? The source argues that even though it feels exciting at first, it's fundamentally empty, or at least temporary, because there's this debt you incur. You will eventually face the cost of that theft.
Okay, so that's the robbery side.
Then it contrasts that sharply with sex inside a committed marriage. And the metaphor flips completely. Now it's like depositing money in a bank.
Depositing money, so the opposite action.
Completely. It represents security, assurance, and critically, the potential for growth over time. Building something solid for the future, a foundation.
And it's careful, isn't it? The source doesn't just say marriage is the key. It actually defines what kind of marriage provides that security. It makes it clear that just like moving in together or being casually involved, that doesn't cut it.
Precisely. That's a crucial point. The source demands more. For it to be the secure deposit, true marriage needs, well, several things. Formal vow, mutual love, and really importantly, fidelity. That deep, ongoing commitment. That's what builds the structure, the safeguard.
The institutional safety net, almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's what allows the relationship and the physical part of it to actually become something secure and fulfilling instead of just fleeting and potentially dangerous.
Okay, so the bank analogy sets up consequences. Debt versus security. But then the source really ramps up the seriousness, doesn't it, when that line is crossed? Which brings us to the real theological core here and this unique claim about sexual sin.
Right. We shift gears a bit here from just ethics or consequences to something more fundamental, more theological. The source really emphasizes the unique weight of this transgression by pointing back to Genesis, actually, to the idea that in intimacy, man and woman become one flesh or one body.
That phrase, one body, that's the justification then for the main claim from 1 Corinthians, that sexual sin is different because it's the only sin someone commits against their own body. I mean, if I lie or steal, those actions seem external. Why is this one internal?
Well, what's fascinating is the source seems to be arguing for damage on an ontological level, not just behavioral. The idea is that the sexual act isn't just physical, it involves the entire person. It's meant to be this profound, spiritual and even existential joining.
So if you violate that,
If you violate that specific kind of intimacy, the argument goes, your whole self, your entire being gets entangled in the wrong. Think about, say, greed or theft. The damage might seem external reputation, finances, someone else's stuff, but the commentary here insists this particular sin causes deep, lasting harm because the whole self is involved and, in a way, damaged at its core. It's framed as a great evil, not a small slip-up, precisely because you're harming the very essence of who you were designed to be in committed union. The depth of the act dictates the depth of the harm.
so the intimacy isn't just skin deep, it's soul deep. It changes the state of the person, which means the wound is internal. Okay, that leads us right into the consequences. Even if someone later seeks forgiveness, the source brings up Galatians 6, right? The sowing and reaping idea.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Sow to the flesh, reap corruption, or what the source calls evil fruit.
And this is where it gets maybe a bit tough. The source acknowledges that theologically God might forgive the sin, but the consequences, that evil fruit, they often stick around in life. The source actually calls this lingering effect very sad.
Yeah, it highlights that tension. Forgiveness is possible, but the earthly consequences might still play out, which, naturally, leads you to ask.
Right, what is that lasting damage? If the pleasure was temporary, like the bank robber's rush, what's the cost that remains?
And the source answers that with another really powerful image, the scar analogy. It says, crossing this moral red line leaves a permanent mark, an imprint on your life, a burden you carry.
Like a nail in wood. Is that the comparison?
That's the one. It's compared to driving a nail into wood. When you repent and are forgiven, it's like pulling the nail out. The nail is gone, but the hole, the imprint, it's still there forever.
Wow, that's quite an image, because it links the immediate gratification, the hammer swing directly to that long-term inescapable cost, the hole left behind. So the spiritual, the psychological fallout, broken trust, guilt, maybe instability in later relationships, that becomes a visible scar.
And this whole situation, the source points out, is made so much harder by modern culture. It explicitly connects the scar idea to the challenges we see today, mentioning Taiwan specifically, but it applies broadly. Media, advertising, they relentlessly push lust and this kind of relativistic thinking, summed up as,
If I like it, what's wrong?
Exactly that phrase, if I like it, what's wrong? Which is the polar opposite of the source's emphasis on permanence and structure. The source argues this normalization of temporary pleasure, this focus on self-gratification, has led to a huge erosion of moral grounding. It makes resisting this great evil, as it calls it, way harder. It basically normalizes the bank robber mindset in relationships.
The pressure is immense then, if everything around you is pushing one way.
Right. And if the consequence is this lifelong scar, just relying on your own willpower seems, well, risky at best.
Okay, so if the temptation is that strong and the consequence is that severe, the source has to offer some practical advice, right? How do you actually respond? And it turns to Joseph, doesn't it? Joseph and Potiphar's wife?
Yes, the Joseph story becomes the absolute model for how to act. Joseph didn't hang around debating, he didn't try to rationalize. He saw the temptation immediately, not just as a bad choice, but as that great evil. And he clearly states, how then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God, and, importantly, against his master?
Oh, that's a key distinction the source makes. He saw it as betraying both God and the human authority he was under.
Yes, he recognized it wasn't just about him, it would damage his relationship vertically with God and horizontally with Potiphar. It wasn't a contained sin.
And because he saw the stakes so clearly?
That clarity led him to the only strategy the source endorses: run. Immediate radical flight. He chose to flee, even knowing it meant immediate negative consequences for him being falsely accused, losing his cloak, ending up in prison. The source implies that the potential spiritual and personal catastrophe of the sin was far worse than the immediate cost of running away.
So, building on Joseph's example, the source gives this incredibly visceral mental tool, something to use right in the moment of temptation, especially if you're, say, traveling or in the place where you're exposed.
Yeah.
It's the cobra analogy, right?
The cobra snake, yes. Visualize the temptation, whatever it is, not as something alluring, but as a cobra rearing up, hissing right in front of you.
That's vivid.
It is. And the instruction that follows is just as stark. Don't touch it. Don't analyze it. Don't pause to admire its patterns or think about how dangerous it is. If you stop, if you engage with it at all, if you start thinking it's beautiful or intriguing, you will get bitten. And the bite is presented as spiritually fatal.
So no negotiation, no testing your strength against it.
Absolutely not. The source is clear. Relying on your own self-control, thinking you can handle it, touch the snake and pull back. That's the first mistake. The only option is immediate avoidance. Recognize the danger for what it is, turn around and run. Literally move towards environments that support your commitment to God's structure, not away from them.
Okay. This has been quite a journey through some pretty challenging theological ideas. We've covered that core difference, the bank robber versus the depositor. Then the unique claim about sinning against your own body. We looked at the long-term impact, that scar analogy. And finally, this urgent, practical warning, the cobra.
It's a lot to take in, and the source itself concludes with a prayer, asking for self-control, for peace for the listener, virtues needed to avoid that cobra bite. As you, the listener, reflect on all this, maybe consider that tension we discussed. The source describes the temptation itself as stimulating enjoyment, right? At that bank robber high. Yet it insists the deepest, most lasting damage. The evil fruit, the scar, lands squarely on the person who chased that fleeting pleasure. It makes you wonder, does the source offer any way to actually heal that hole left by the nail, or is the primary focus just on that urgent, radical avoidance before the nail is even driven? That's definitely something to mull over.
A very powerful question to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.